Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today I am going to be talking about grass Pokemon. Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, summer is rapidly running out. Let's talk about grass Pokemon while we can. Quick disclaimer at the beginning, we will not be talking about Mega Sceptile too much. That's its own deck. If you want that video, stick it down in the comments. Similarly, we're not going to be talking about Beedrill, either the Mega or the new one from Evolutions. I've already done that video. There is a link in the description, and you know I'm going to forget. So someone let me know in the comments, and then there will be. Today, we're talking about other grass Pokemon. Now, there is a deck here, a deck with which Jesper Eriksson won the World Championships in the Senior Division. We'll have a quick look at that. And there are a whole bunch of other grass Pokemon. So we're going to look at all of them in this video. We're going to talk about grass. So, starting off, we have Forest of Giant Plants. This is what makes grass an interesting type. It allows you, not unlike the old Stadium card, Broken Time Space, it allows you to evolve whenever you feel like it. The difference is that Forest of Giant Plants, as the name may suggest, only allows you to do so for grass Pokemon. But it means that you get to go around the ordinary rules of evolution. It means that you've got an advantage over other types. Now, there are two main attackers here, and they are the two that are going to be the main focus of this video. First, we have Yanmega. Now, we're talking about the Steam Siege Yanmega here, and it's all really built around this ability, Sonic Vision. If you have exactly 4 cards in your hand, ignore all energy in the attack cost of each of this Pokemon's attacks. Sounds good. So I suppose the initial question we need to look at is, how do you get a hand of 4 cards? Now, the obvious answer here is Judge. You play Judge, both players shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a new hand of 4. Now, this is good for a couple of reasons. Firstly, you get the hand size you need to activate Yanmega's ability. But secondly, you put your opponent down to a hand of 4, which means that hopefully they've got fewer cards in their hand than they did before, and that gives you an advantage. Now, this can go wrong. If Judge is the only supporter you have on turn 1, you don't really want a hand of 4 to begin the game. That's a pain. Secondly, your opponent may have a terrible hand. And we all know that. We've all been playing games where we sit there and our opponent just doesn't play a supporter card for 3 turns in a row. It means I don't have a supporter card. So do you play the Judge and give them a new hand of 4? Or do you not play it and then, of course, run the risk of not being able to use Yanmega's ability? The other thing is, if you play a Judge and then draw a card you need to play, you can't do anything. So let's say, for argument's sake, you really need to draw into, I don't know, let's say you really need a double colourless energy for one of the Pokemon on your bench. Well, if you play a Judge and draw the double colourless energy, you then can't attach it. That's a problem. Or maybe you've got a Pokemon in the active and you need a switch. You can play the Judge, you might get the switch, but if you play the switch to put the Yanmega in the active, you're not then going to be able to attack with the Yanmega because of the ability. Now, the attack costs 3 energy, and that's a pain. Oh, he's got free retreat, by the way. That's awesome. Now, the problem here is that you really want to... If this had a DCE as the attack cost, an attack cost of 2, you could go, I don't have the ability, DCE, there we go. An attack cost of 3 basically means you've got to plan in advance to attack, unless you have the ability, and that's a problem. 50 damage for free energy, bad. 50 damage for 120, I mean, there we're basically back with Black and White Zekrom and Reshiram, but you know what, it's okay. And, you know, grass is a decent weakness to hit. It means things like Greninja Break or Zygarde, or in expanded Seismitoad, will be one-hit KO'd. So that's a good thing. But you only do 120 if your opponent's got a Pokemon tool attached. And of course, the first thing your opponent is going to do against Yanmega is stop attaching Pokemon tools. Now, this can work out in your favour. Your opponent might really want to put a Fighting Fury belt down to increase their HP, but of course Fighting Fury belt increases their HP by 40, and your attack by 70. Yeah, that's not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, they're not going to do that. Which means that they are not doing stuff they want to do to try and upset you. Well, that's good, because that's giving you an advantage. Things like Floatstone. Haha, I'm not going to give myself free retreat. That'll learn you. Okay. But now you've lost that free retreat that you would have wanted. We've also got Yanmega Break, who's just a solid 100. It doesn't hit for weakness. Now, it also doesn't hit for resistance, but off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that has resistance to grass. And to be honest, grass isn't... There are some common resistances. A lot of electric Pokemon resist metal. A lot of flying Pokemon resist fighting. But you don't really get resistance to grass. So basically it's 100, but it doesn't hit for weakness. You know what? 100 for 0 energy, that's okay. And this is essentially a stage 2, but let's not forget the old forest of giant plants here. So you can still evolve it whenever you feel like it. I'm a big fan of Pokemon that you can use now. 1 energy, or in this case 0, and you don't have to wait to evolve. And you know what? Yanmega hits both of these requirements, and I am all in favour of this. The other Pokemon, which should be commonly paired with this, is Vespiquen from Ancient Origins. Again, we've got grass, we've got forest of giant plants. Again, we've got free retreat. I love having 2 main attackers, both of whom have free retreat. By the way, it's not the ancient trait one. It's clearly the non-ancient trait one. It's much better. Now, intelligence gathering, 1 energy, 10 damage, draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand. You know what? You'll use that attack occasionally because you don't have anything in your hand, or because you've been end and you have few cards in your hand, or whatever. But it's Bee Revenge we're looking at. 20 damage, plus 10 for each Pokemon in your discard pile. Now that sounds pretty good to me, ladies and gentlemen. Put a whole bunch of Pokemon in your discard pile, off you go. Now, Vespiquen was very, very good before the rotation that's just hit. Remember, we've just gone from X and Y on to Primal Clash on, meaning that all sets from Primal Clash and later are legal, and any sets released chronologically before Primal Clash are not legal for tournament play, at least in Standard. And there's a couple problems with this. Firstly, we've lost Battle Compressor. It allowed you to discard 3 cards from your deck, which of course fueled Vespiquen quite nicely. And secondly, we are soon going to be getting the supporter card Karen. Now, this is going to make both players shuffle all the Pokemon from their discard pile back into their deck. It's a neutered version of Lysander's trump card without allowing you to play ridiculous trainers over and over again. Yeah, that card was actually broken and it got banned. What this means is if you get all the Pokemon in your discard and your opponent plays a Karen, that's not going to end well for you. And it depends if people are going to play Karen or not. But here's the thing about Vespiquen. Decent damage for a double colourless energy. 1 energy attachment. And this is where we're going with this. You've got 2 non-EX Pokemon who only give up 1 prize each, who attack for either 1 energy attachment or for 0 and do decent damage. Let's say you get 8 Pokemon in a discard pile. That means you're essentially hitting 100 with Vespiquen or 100 with Yanmega every turn for 1 or 0 energy while only giving up a single prize. And they're both stage 1s, although Yanmega brings it up to a stage 2. Now we're rolling. And this is the deck with which Jesper Eriksson won the World Championship. Now, it was in the Seniors division, but you know what? Good seniors age up into the Masters division and keep winning. So make no mistake, this was an exceptional deck. Now, there was one other grass Pokemon that Jesper played, so let's start with him, as we're looking at other Pokemon here. Ariados. Now, I see Ariados as a luxury card. I don't think this is needed. I don't think it's necessary, but I do think it's cool. And I'm not just speaking as someone who has 10 pet tarantulas. That's right, not a typo. Spoken typo. Poisonous Nest. Once during your turn, you may use this ability. Both active Pokemon except grass Pokemon are now poisoned. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Poisoned. How cool is that? Just instant poison. As long as you've got a grass Pokemon active, like your Vespiquen, your Yanmega, etc., you just get free poison. Your opponent takes 10 damage between turns. After your turn, they take 10 damage. After their turn, they take 10 damage. It takes a while for this to add up, but you know what? It's alright. It's nice extra damage. You'd probably only play a 1-1 line. This isn't going to win you every game, but every so often it's going to give you a little bit of a boost. Now, there is a grass Pokemon that Jesper didn't play in his deck, which I believe he should have, or at least he should have considered. Let's not forget he won Worlds and I didn't. But there's a really good grass Pokemon that came out in Steam Siege. It's Galvin Chola. And it's a dual type. It's both electric and grass. However, Joltik is not a grass Pokemon, which means you do have to wait a turn to evolve. Bit of a pain, I know, but Ariados still won't poison him, and you know what? It's a stage 1, it fits the theme of the deck. I know you can't auto-evolve and that's upsetting. I'm still a huge fan of Galvin Chola. And the reason is, well, quite frankly, he's good. Now, he has received an errata. An errata basically means it's not written on the card, but we all assume it is. You can only use double threat against 2 bench Pokemon. You cannot hit the active. It was mistranslated from Japan. It's not 30 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. It's 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Well, you know what's weak to lightning? Shaman. And you do 60 damage. Oh yeah, you apply weakness and resistance on the bench. But as previously mentioned, what's resistant to grass? So you get to go ahead here and 2-hit KO 2 Shamans for 1 energy with a non-EX Pokemon. Now, he's only got 90 HP and he'll probably be KO'd quickly, but you know what? I am still a huge fan of Galvin Chola. It's also incredibly good against Greninja. Now, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. You've got a pretty good Greninja matchup anyway because he's weak to grass, but it's not unlosable. Especially if they get loads of abilities off and KO all your low HP Pokemon. Double Thread will 1-hit KO 2 Froakies at once on the bench. Okay, Frogadiers will be left with 10 HP each, but still, that's good. Yeah, you don't get to use Forest of Giant Plants and that sucks, but you know what? I can get over this. Now, there are some other grass Pokemon that I'm not so keen on in this deck. But remember, I told you that I was not just going to focus on the Vespiquen Yanmega deck. So these are other Pokemon, if you're running a grass deck, you might want to consider. First of all, Vileplume. Again, it's a grass Pokemon. You can evolve up whenever you like using Forest of Giant Plants. It blocks item cards for both yourself and for your opponent. Now, we talked about this in the Beedrill video. We don't need to go into a huge amount of detail. But again, if you can be hitting hard and fast with Vespiquen and Yanmega while your opponent doesn't have access to items, you know what? 100 a turn when your opponent is item locked, I can live with that. Vileplume, good. But I'm going to finish off looking at some more niche Pokemon that don't see a lot of play. Now, both of them involve coin flips. But you know what? They are really worth it. First of all, Servine. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this like a lot of people were hyping when it came out thinking it was going to be its own deck. It was never going to be its own deck. But you know what? The ability of Servine is very, very good. When you evolve, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Which means you get a free turn where they can't do anything. I'm okay with that, you know. That sounds pretty good to me. And you can evolve straight away. You can put down your Snivy straight into your Servine, boom. Flip a coin, if head, your opponent is paralyzed. Now, if you hit tails, you've just got a stage 1 on your bench, and the Superior, I'm going to be honest, isn't great. But it's there. Another one, and I bought a playset of this card, and I am not embarrassed to admit, Primal Clash Ludicolo. The non-ancient trait one again. I love non-ancient trait Ludicolo. Now, I tried playing it with Miltank. It wasn't good. You know what? I accept that. But if you're looking to be a little bit risky, it's pretty cool. Its ability is a Pokemon catcher. Flip a coin. If heads, switch your opponent's active with one of their bench. Now again, you're inserting a stage 2 line into a deck which has already got a couple of stage 1s. Yes, it is going to be an issue in terms of consistency, but if you can get this rolling, and this ability stacks, so if you can get 2 Ludicolo out, flip 2 coins if one of them is heads. And this might sound silly, but you know what? People were playing a 1-1 Ariados line in their deck. So why shouldn't you go ahead and play a 1-1-1 Ludicolo line? I don't think that would be a terrible idea. I think making it the focus of your deck is maybe not the best idea ever. But I think having just a 1-1-1 line, just leaving it there, because on average, every other turn you're going to hit a heads. And on those turns, you're going to do very, very well indeed. One extra fun little trick you can do with all your grass Pokemon is use Revitalizer. This is the item card from the Generations expansion, which allows you to take 2 grass Pokemon and put them in your hand. Oh yeah, and you've got Forest of Giant Plants, so you can just evolve them straight away. That's pretty cool. And of course, if you're using double colourless energy, as you will be for Vespiquen, don't forget about Special Charge, which allows you to get some of those double colourless energy too, if you want to be precise about it. And I do, back into your deck. Now, I don't have Jesper Eriksson's list to hand, but here is Stefan Sorensen's, lovely Dutch chap I met at the Dutch National Championships, who worked on his list with Jesper, so it's at least very, very similar. And he did very well in Worlds with this list. It gives you an idea of what we are rolling with here. Again, you see the 1-1 Ariados line, but no Galvin Chola or Vileplume or things like that. Going after rotation, okay, there are certain challenges to this deck. It's going to struggle to one-hit KO Mega Mewtwo, and let's not forget that he will be using damage change if you don't one-hit KO. But we're talking about a fast, consistent deck that hits 100 or more for few energy. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I think it's got a little bit of a chance. Now, you know the deal. There is a comment section. Use it. Talk about grass Pokemon. I dare you. If you haven't clicked that like button already, what are you doing? Why do you hate me? Make sure you subscribe if you haven't, and get a friend to subscribe on your behalf if you have. And of course, make sure you check me out on Twitter at @TheWassy. And if you don't already, make sure you subscribe on iTunes to my podcast, PTCG Radio. And of course, the most important thing as always, ladies and gentlemen, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.